Did you really enjoy the first Wonder Woman film from 2017? Well, you might want to skip this one. Let's talk about why. Welcome to Spartan Entertainment and Electronics. I'm your host Ryan. Let's talk about why Wonder Woman 1984 may or may not be one to watch. Wonder Woman 1984 is the sequel to the successful maiden adventure of the title character and the 9th installment in the DC Extended Universe. Patty Jenkins is back in the directorial chair for this follow-up, with a script co-written by Jenkins, Jeff Johns, and Dave Callahan. Notable production credits are Zack Snyder, Deborah Snyder, Patty Jenkins, and Gal Gadot. Originally scheduled for release in June of 2020, the film was delayed several times due to the pandemic closures of theaters, amongst other services. Wonder Woman 1984 was finally premiered digitally December 15, 2020 via the DC FanDome, after an extended marketing campaign and cinemas not reopening in several markets. I chose to hold off on seeing the film as the marketing structure and price value of the home premiere model is concerning to me. I'm planning a video on that digital structure and my concerns with it, so be sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you can weigh in on the conversation for that one. Wonder Woman 1984 sees the return of Gal Gadot as Diana Prince, as well as Chris Pine returning to the role of Steve Trevor through godly powered rocks. We'll get to that in a minute though. Other major casting sees Kristen Wiig as Barbara Minerva, aka Cheetah, and Pedro Pascal as Maxwell Lord. The casting selection was interesting for a couple of reasons. Gal Gadot and Chris Pine stepping back into their respective roles was great, and they picked up in similar fashion to where they left off in the first film. It became interesting with the other two primary characters. Barbara Minerva starts out as a socially awkward introvert, just wanting to be noticed. It's awfully hard to picture Kristen Wiig in that role, as that's not her type in anything else I've seen her in. The character profile changed over time, however, this early setup just did not work or feel natural. It seemed very forced and out of place. Pedro Pascal is the other challenging cast choice. I know him primarily as the Mandalorian, so it was another hard transition seeing him in a position of being a villain amongst other things, like greedy and driven to secure all the power and prestige of the world. This was the first major flaw for me, seeing two actors that I have very defined profiles of in my mind, and trying to transition into roles that are so different from what is expected. It doesn't help that the script wasn't supportive to character development for either Barbara or Maxwell. Let me know in the comments who you would have cast for these two roles. Several things to talk about with the script since I've opened that door. Chris Pine was showing signs of age as Steve Trevor, salt and pepper gray hair being the most noticeable of the features. I'm not sure if it was planned to show him in that way, but it wasn't addressed. And at one point, Steve tells Diana she looks as though she has not aged a day.
Diana, look at you. It's like not one day has passed.
And that would have been a great opportunity to address that Steve is looking older and more life-worn after, having been dead for 66 years. The new characters, most specifically Cheetah, were not developed in such a way to make you care about or become invested in them. This is probably the biggest sin with the script for me, considering, from what I understand, Cheetah is a recurring character in the comics, and I've seen articles describing her as an arch-nemesis for Wonder Woman. It would have been more beneficial to the movie, on a larger scale, to flush more out of Barbara Minerva and Maxwell Lord, than to use, say, 3 or 4 minutes for a quick break to see Steve and Diana flying through fireworks, which is a whole other issue I will cycle back to after I finish this rant. Enough backstory was added for the two characters that the viewer can understand their motivations and core drivers for their choices, but there's nothing done to really make you feel empathy or attachment to them over the course of this approximate 2.5 hours. Maxwell Lord and his relationship with his son Alistair is another connection that could have been used to create compassion or empathy for Maxwell, but was instead used as an ineffective plot tool. Alistair is used in such a way to be a weakness for Maxwell, but it wasn't built in a manner to develop any meaningful connection to the character. Explicit sexual harassment of the female characters was also used in such a way to not offer much to the story.
Hey, babe.
It could have been different if it was addressed more directly as a statement on equality or objectification of women, but rather it was used as a tool to dehumanize Barbara and then just shelved. This could have been a great opportunity to make an effective, integrated statement about gender equality and how behavior like this isn't acceptable, especially by today's standards. Using it as a platform like that also could go horribly wrong if it isn't handled with tact and subtlety. Cycling back to the fireworks thing, as promised. It seemed very out of place for Steve and Diana to just take a leisurely flight through a 4th of July fireworks show. Some problems I had with this are first and foremost the safety aspect of it. Steve obviously has no concern for his or Diana's life, or rather the body that Steve is hosting. All it would take is one firework to strike the plane and they're probably going down. Also, the jet would most definitely be affecting the display and somebody would probably wonder what the hell is causing a disturbance with the fireworks display. It's the little things, you know? Second concern with this sequence, although it was a pretty touching moment to attempt to reestablish a connection or something between Diana and Steve, I think that time would have been better used to establish a stronger connection to Barbara and Maxwell. There were also many convenient things written into the script, like the jet just conveniently being fully fueled and waiting to go on the runway. Diana being able to suddenly master the cloaking technique for the jet after acknowledging it hasn't gone well on previous attempts. Steve conveniently knows how to use tech that he has never seen before, and he's, 66 more years more advanced than he last used. 'Cause he's been dead. Moving to the bigger story. Base premise, there is this citrine stone that is rumored to grant wishes. Diana wishes on it, and Steve comes back. It's never directly addressed, however, that Steve comes back into some other dude's body. He is self-aware of what is going on, but both Steve and Diana never really question why, how, or what are the consequences and ripple effects of this. Also aware that Steve has possessed some other fellow, they take risks that put this unknowing and probably unwilling gent at extreme risk to health and life. Steve also seems to quickly pick up technology that is new since his death in World War I, without any difficulty or learning curve, the jet and his ability to fly it being the most egregious of these instances. Steve's role primarily seemed to be his humor breaks throughout the film, as well as sidekick and arm candy for Diana. His impact to the story was lesser than in Wonder Woman 2017. There's one other element I think needs to be addressed, and that is the mid-credit clip. It's great that they added Linda Carter in as Asteria, and it was a fantastic nod to the icon that her Wonder Woman portrayal is in the DC history. This could have been incorporated into the film in a much larger way that would have held a larger impact, instead of just added as fan service at the end. They could have added glimpses of the character along the way and had Diana do double takes, building up a massive reveal in the post-credit clip. It was a missed opportunity, and I hope the DCEU execs take note and are planning bigger in the next installment of this series. Post-production overall was well done. The flow and editing of the movie was mostly good. There were a number of continuity errors along the way. The most notable was when Cheetah was kicking in the teeth of a perv from earlier in the movie. His keys fell out of his pocket and were lying on the ground, and then suddenly with a camera angle change, they were just gone. I counted 5 instances of continuity errors, and I'm certain I missed more. It's 2021. This is a big budget film. These are small errors that should be getting caught. It is easy to add the keys back in with video editing software, or to edit out things like a Starbucks cup. Computer graphics were 98% fantastic. However, when it wasn't fantastic, it was really bad. Diana is running at one point, and it was really off-putting how bad it looked. Again, big budget, other beautiful CG elements. Why was that missed? Especially with how much it took away from the scene and the believability of Diana's super speed. I have nitpicked extensively, and so now I think it's time to talk about some of the positive things from Wonder Woman 1984. Hans Zimmer handled the soundtrack for this film, and he did so with his usual magical wonderment. The music added huge value to the feeling and presence of the scenes, as well as helping the balance and flow of progression. This was one of the highest points for me in the movie. The sets and imagery were fantastic. The opening sequence panning over Themyscira was stunning. Even though I had issue with it, the sequence from the fireworks show was a sight to behold. The visuals through the Egyptian landscapes made it seem like I was there. This element of the movie carried over excellently from the 2017 installment. The imagery used when Diana breaks out the golden armor of Asteria was very well done, and used in such a way that I felt a huge surge of excitement when it was out and in combat. The makeup and CG of Cheetah in the later part of the film was sharp and well thought out. The combat sequences in several environments like the White House and Egypt were well choreographed, flowed smoothly, and had exhilarating moments. There was more passion in the combat than there was in the overall story. I also want to acknowledge that the idea of greed and the cost or toll it can take on someone was well addressed in the story. It was primarily passive but manifested in such ways as Diana losing her abilities and powers, Barbara becoming dehumanized and driven by anger and desire to keep her power, and Maxwell losing sight of what is most important during his quest for power. None of these were explicitly drawn attention to, but rather mentioned at various times throughout the runtime, and were constant in the underwritings. The 1980s were also well captured on film throughout, highlighting some of the biggest stereotypes and ideas to come out of that time. It was a really fun time to see it captured in this way and revived temporarily through this experience. I've gone on for quite a while about what did and did not work out for this movie. To wrap it up, I would say that Wonder Woman 1984 tried to replicate the success of the 2017 entry, but wasn't able to build or innovate on what worked and just ended up falling flat. Lack of character development, lazy writing, significant editing and CG issues, and a couple of major missed opportunities to build something bigger. It handled the visuals and audio expertly, and addressed the topic of greed and how it affects humanity on a larger scale. It also was an exciting experience to see Wonder Woman fighting with elegant styles throughout some of the best sequences in the film. If you, like myself, are a fan of superhero movies, this one is worth watching with low expectations to complete the franchise experience. Try to go into it without being hyped up from all the marketing that was built over all the delays and setbacks towards its eventual release. There was a good number of enjoyable moments, but lacks substance overall. I'm going to call this one a flick, and I'm going to hope for a return to the excellence found in Wonder Woman from 2017 in the third foray into this series. Thanks for hanging out for this video. You know the drill. Subscribe, turn on notifications, like, and share. Leave a comment and let me know what your favorite superhero or DCEU movie is, or if there are any that you were looking forward to in the near future. I know I am on the hype train and waiting patiently for Black Widow to finally hit theaters. I'm always working on more reviews and other content as frequently as I'm able to, so be sure to subscribe and turn on those notifications. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.